Octave, how'd you become a Christian?
I was raised in the mainline Church of Christ. I had parents who loved me and supported me, guided me in all they were growing. Now I'm in the age of my parents. See, I would have been about 12 when my parents were 42. And God bless them. They, as all parents do, they do the best they can, right? So
Right.
dad said, I knew I didn't know how to raise a kid. So I took him to church. So raised in the mainline church and heard all the sermons and applied, just applied myself. They forced me to go actually, had just to tell the truth. They made me go, and so that was amen. That was what it took, and I heard all the sermons and then just realized at the age of 16 that I wanted to make Jesus Lord and got baptized and just that was the start of the journey, and I don't think the Lord ever gives up on his children after that. So
Right. Right.
throughout the years, all the mountains and the valleys, right? So we go through life, and after
Sure.
my parents quit making me go to church, I didn't go after I graduated high school, but they still love me.
Okay. So you drifted away and then you came back. You have a very interesting name. What was the origin of your name?
So my dad's grandpa on his dad's side was named Octave, and so he really looked up to his dad and or his grandfather, and so he named me after him. And they were musicians. They really enjoyed picking and grinning on the porch in Cloudy, Oklahoma, small country town that he rode with his wife in a covered wagon to in 1899 from Peerless, Texas.
Wow. Okay, so you're an Okie. Has anyone ever told you that you have an accent?
Oh, yeah, yeah. If I if I'm careful, I can stop it, but I don't really try.
Okay, so give me an overview of where you've been over the last 20 years. How old are you now, Octave?
42. I guess, around 22, I was at Tinker Air Force I was working at Tinker Air Force Base. Let's see, so I worked all over. I went from Oklahoma to Colorado to work at Peterson Air Force Base. Then that didn't work out, so I became jobless for about a year, and then I was like, "What do I do?" So I moved back to Oklahoma and bought a house. So I had $1,000 and I'm like, here's a house for $33,000. Okay, let's buy it.
Like
But
you
I had
found a
no
house for
job.
$33,000.
Right.
Oh
On
my
three-quarter
gosh.
acre in
Oh
great
boy.
area, Tornado Alley, Oklahoma. Yeah. So I fixed it up into it kind of really worked out nicely where I pretty well ran out of money. I don't know if I had 40 or $50,000 to my name at the time, but I worked for a year and a half on the property, jobless, and then I got another job back at Tinker Air Force Base as an aircraft mechanic again. Then at about the same time, I rented a room out of that house. Three-quarters of the house wasn't done. Three-quarters of the house was about 80% done, but that one room was 100% done. I lived there. A guy from church lived there with me. He was going through a divorce. And so this is called house hacking, if everybody, I didn't know what it was. I didn't know there was a term for it
Right.
back then.
Right.
Yeah, but, house hacked that property for maybe 3 years and rented rooms out, got it finished up, and then I got a job in San Diego at the Navy base on North Island, and then when I moved out here, I'm in San Diego now, that's where just Googled the church, Church of Christ, San Diego, and then I found a website that looked good. I'm like, "Wow, they have a link to click for singles. What is this?" So let me rewind just a little bit. Before I started my job back at Tinker, I took a month-long road trip. I visited my friend in San Diego. He was living in Gaslamp downtown. I'm like, this is awesome. I love it. And I applied for a job, found a job, applied for it 6 months later. And then a year after that, I got to move out here and I stayed with him. You know what financial freedom you have to be able to figure out like the big 3. How do you save money on the big 3, which are rent, transportation, and food? and so I always was able to either house hack, buy a house. I never rented until I rented from my buddy and paid him, only charging me a third of the rent, which was nice in San Diego. So that was the first time I ever rented anything.
Hey, let me just, stop you right there, Octave. So,
Yeah,
like, how old are you at this time? When you're in, working at Tinky, like 18, you 22?
yeah.
Okay, what year are we talking?
Started in 2000, December 4th, 2000 at Tinker Air Force Base. 18, just 10 days
You
before, 20 days
and you
after I
started
turned 18.
you were working as an aircraft mechanic.
Right.
Okay, so you for 20 years, you were a GS employee, government
Right.
service.
BG
Okay,
and GS, right.
okay. And so then what year did you go to San Diego?
That was 2016.
Okay, so from 2000 to 2016, you were in Oklahoma mostly, some in
And
Colorado?
Colorado, a few years in Colorado.
Okay, and so
Mhm.
during that period of time, you bought one house and refurbished it?
Right, so let's go back, that was the 3rd house I mentioned. So the first house, was the house I grew up in. My parents, I finally got them out when I was 22. That's another joke there, so yeah. A lot of my humor's dry, so when people get my jokes, it's great. Yeah, but, they finally moved out when I was 22, and I've bought houses for cheaper than I bought my parents' little house ever since then. So, it's funny how, they're it's like, "Wow, 20 years later, I bought a house for $5,000 less than I paid my parents." I think they overcharged me.
Okay, so you bought the house you grew up in, your parents' house. That was your
Mhm.
first purchase?
That's correct, yes, so, I had been looking for a year, put an offer in on one house that was initially rejected and then accepted a week later, but I had already, decided against it, but, yeah, my parents, they finally found a house, they found one before I did, so they took off, and I'm glad they did. They needed to get out of that little neighborhood and move into a better place, and especially since I've had so much issues with the longtime neighbors that I grew up next door with. They're glad, mom's passed, but dad's glad he's not there anymore. So I rent the
Nice.
house out when I'm gone. And I bought the second house 3 doors down from there in 2005. I bought my parents' house. And then 2000, bought the house down the street. I became a realtor in 2008, and so that kinda started my real estate career, and I could dive into that because it's the journey that's where God starts. I can see where God starts the real estate for me, and that was with the elder at the church that his kids were older than me in the youth group, but he was a real estate developer, still active, still is. He, when I went back to church in about 2005, I was about 24, and he was expanding his realtor side of his real estate business. So I got in with them, and then I posted it on Facebook or MySpace, whichever one was going at the time, and one of my old classmates who grew up down the street, she called me up, said, "Hey, grandma gave me the house and we're selling it, and it's just 3 doors down from me." So she grew up about 20 doors down, her grandma was 3 doors down. So I said, "Okay, great. This is '08, I listed the house. I told her, "Well, you need to do X, Y, and Z to get the house to sell because this is a bad economy, real estate market right now, and really nothing's moving in this condition. But if you wanna sell it to me, I'll buy it." Gave her the offer, $40,000, and we tried to sell it for 6 months, and like I said, it didn't sell because of its condition, so she said, "Okay, I'll take your offer." And the elder at the church, I get butterflies in my stomach. This is my first rental property purchase. Like, I lived in my house and no big deal. I knew that was good, and I didn't wanna pay rent, so when the elder, he was great. He came over, looked at the house. He said, "Yeah, this is a good deal. If you can get it for that price, you'll be happy and it'll work out great for you." So that happened, and then, let's see, that was the 2nd house, and then by the 3rd house, that was after I moved to Colorado, moved back, my 2 houses are rented out. So when I moved to Colorado, I was thrust into being a long distance landlord, which I really didn't even know how to be a landlord, let alone long distance landlord. So when I moved, you make your mistakes and you learn and you try to figure out how to do something. That's kinda the advice I give, don't have analysis paralysis. Get advice like I did and then go for it. So, that really worked out well for me, and after by the 3rd house, I wasn't needing to ask so much advice. I asked some fellow investors, people at church, other realtors for advice on the 3rd house, and then another friend, this other friend that I know from Tinker Air Force Base, he's passed now, but he really helped guide me in working on houses and cars and figuring out how to not spend the measly money I was making.
Right.
That really be able to, I guess, transportation, food, shelter, those are the big ones. If you can learn how to fix your own cars and food and houses, then you'll be able to get to financial independence in 20 years. It took me 20, but it can take 5 to 10 after I've learned what I've learned.
Right. Okay. So let me just dial it back here a little bit. So you were kind of drifting spiritually there. You weren't going to church. Something must have happened for you to start going back. You mentioned like 2005. We
Mhm.
met earlier this year at a singles retreat up in Flagstaff, Arizona, when I was still living in Tucson. And we started talking in the fellowship, and I'm like, hey, let's exchange numbers. I want to talk to you more because it impressed me. Because here you are, you're a young man in my mind. You're like just entering into your prime, but you're financially independent and a strong Christian. I mean, you're like a really dedicated disciple. You want looking for a mission team. What happened to you spiritually that brought you back to God?
I was in a relationship in my early 20s that was good, but yet it wasn't godly. So it wasn't really good, I thought it was good but there's something in the back of my mind that same spirit said this isn't the right relationship for you. But it broke my heart anyways. So I hit my rock bottom. Thankfully it wasn't horrible to a major devastating to life kind of way, but it really got me, crying out to God and seeking what is life all about, and so mom and dad never quit praying for me. They always did that, and they always supported me, and so I really encourage parents to not be so, I guess, hard on your kids, because my parents, they knew it wasn't godly, they knew it wasn't right, but yet they never dogged me for it, they never just came down on me, they just let me live and figure it out and kept praying for me. So, once once the spirit just whispered, like, "This isn't the right relationship for you," I cried out, started looking in the Word for what was supposed to be my life, and then went back to church, found the elder and his right hand guy at the time, who was developing realtors and also in the church, and they had a singles program, and then I found friends there. So that was pretty well what got me back. The relationship, and that's been the ebb and flow of my life, to be the difficult times come when I don't seem to be following God's design for a leader in a relationship.
Okay.
So
So so you came back around 2005 or so. You joined a church. You came back to church, and it kind of coincided your spiritual revival. Basically, you hit like an emotional low, came back to
right.
God. When you came back to God, you came back to church. The elder that there was involved in real estate. So kind of is like both a spiritual revival, but also financial revival. Okay.
Yeah.
What was it that sparked your interest in financial independence? Like, was there something that growing up you go, hey, I really want to be? Was it a conscious decision, or is this something you just kind of backed into, just kind of stumbled into, like, oh, boom, wow, look where I'm at now?
Well, so I guess you ask my childhood friends, they'd say I was always saving money, and it was a God-given desire to I say it's definitely God-given desire to be financially free, and I started a bank account. I told my parents, like, I got all this money. What do I do with it? We could start your bank account. 5 years old, I don't know what I had, a couple $100 at the time, saving Christmas and birthday money and anything that I could get my hands on, even if it wasn't mine. So that's the sin part.
There's the
So,
confession right there.
right, right. God gave me the desire, and he had to spank me a few times to get me to do it right.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
it was definitely the intention. Growing up, I played Monopoly, right? And my dad said I could tell there was something there. He didn't know what it was. He had no investing inclination, and my mom was a an accountant, but she didn't know investing, and so when it came to having other money that I saved, they said, "Well, okay, I guess you can buy bonds." So, okay, I'll go buy bonds, right? And who knows what that money could have been today if we'd have just put it in Google or something, but Google
Right,
didn't come out
exactly.
until I graduated high school. Anyways, yeah, then let's see what kind of got me going. It was definitely just I think I didn't want to be on the in the lower middle class like I was raised. I wanted to have more money to be able to do more things and, be able to raise my family if I had one with love and money.
Got it. Okay,
Just
okay.
love, but, yeah.
So your first step was you came into contact with people that were familiar with real estate. You became a broker in 2008, which was I was in real estate at that same time, and that was really the low point. That was the crash, the Great Recession.
Right.
That was terrible. Oh my gosh. So you got in at just like the worst time possible, but it
Mm,
could have been the very best time. I mean, in terms of buying property, everything went on
right.
sale. So that was great. So your
Yeah.
first step was buying your parents' place, and how much
Right.
did you pay them for that house?
40,000 and I bought the boat for 8,000.
Okay, all right. I mean, to like I hear that kind of numbers and $1,000 for a house, I just go, "Whoa, where are you living?" I mean,
Right.
Siberia? I mean, it's just
Yeah.
crazy, 40,000.
Uh-huh.
I bet you couldn't buy that house for 40,000 now. How much is it worth now?
No, like about 140.
There you go. Okay, so it's gone
But
up quite a bit. So
still,
you made
yeah, still people that listen think 140,000 for a 1,000 square foot, 3 bed, 1 bath, 1 car garage house? What?
I think I need to start another church in Oklahoma. It's time to move there.
Right? Or yeah, just get you a good team built up.
There you go, there you go. So let's
Mhm.
just talk about the last 20 years. Okay, what have been some of the highs and what have been some of the lows when you're looking back?
Yeah, yeah, so definitely the lows are I said earlier, I said I would have a here's the joke, a one-word answer, women, but no, I better expand on that. That's
Okay,
the low be my, uh let's say, my inability to just maintain a relationship with God that would be fruitful, honestly. But that comes also from, of course, not being plugged into a fellowship that is focused on helping build the discipling relationships. And so I really appreciate that in this church and how that has been a focus for midweeks like last night, going to a men's midweek that really just talked all about that and the one another relationships. And so you can look back and see how I was chasing after, like, I guess, money and things and stuff and what I thought would fulfill me, right? Like, I had the boat, I had the house, I had 4 cars in the driveway, I had 2 four-wheelers, ATVs, a dirt bike, you know, and I'm like, "Well, I've got all this stuff, but where I don't have enough friends to I can't even, you know, call 4 friends and say, let's go get on the boat and let's go have a good
Right,
time," right?
right.
So there was that piece that was missing, the loving other people, loving people was missing, so I like that podcast you did recently about how to love people. Well, it comes from God. When we're filling up on God, that overflows, and so that was the low, not having the friends, because I'm an outgoing I suppose I'm maybe not so much outgoing, but I'm, in a way, that's what I am when God when the Spirit is on. I
Right.
enjoy I enjoy people, so, yeah, the highs are when the spirit is on, when I'm doing well with God and with people and friendships, and the lows when I'm not.
Okay. One thing you shared with me is you had a difficulty in a relationship. Would you mind sharing about that?
So, God used my relationships to really shake me up, and, unfortunately, I was just a bad leader and for a few relationships in life until it got to the worst situation, and then I married that one. That was in San Diego. I was brand new in the church. I didn't have I was restored, went through the restoration studies. I didn't get rebaptized, but they placed membership. And then immediately after, this sister who turned out to be, she was disfellowshipped as we're going through the separation for all of that she was doing all over Facebook, lambasting and all the leaders and just lying. I was new, I didn't know anyone, and I needed to grow in my self-esteem and my confidence, and I thought she was gonna be able to help me with that, and she had a lot of good things going for her and a lot of red flags, and so I'm like, "Well, this is my lack of confidence and my lack of self-esteem." I said, "Well, this is just the best I can get," and she wants to marry me, so and she had a young son, maybe he was 4 at the time, so I'm like, "Okay, I guess we're going for it, right?" We broke up a couple of times, and it was so fast. It was like she invited me for coffee the week after I was restored, and then within a couple months, she's telling me she'd like to marry me, and so we got married within 6 months. But, 6 months after that first date, we got married, and then 7 months after that, we separated.
Oh boy.
And that was a big shakeup, a big life lesson and learning. And Dad, I asked Dad, Mom and Dad lived in Oklahoma. I said, "What do you think?" Dad said, "Just why do you need to get married so fast? You don't, you can just date, date for a while." And she was in law school, and so she was very persuasive, and so she persuaded me, and then she helped me persuade others. Like, she coached me to be able to just turn away the opposition.
Got it.
And so that's what we did. We turned away the opposition. We talked we okay, and then I guess, we're in our early 30s, and disciples are gonna let disciples do things, and so, I guess couldn't fight us on it, I suppose. Nobody seemed to really, really fight us on it though, and I guess that's because I didn't have the relationships. I wasn't there long. Now I got a lot of learning from that.
So when did you get married? What year was that?
2017.
Okay, and when did you get divorced?
It was, let's see, 2.5 years later because court at the time took 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Knowing what you know now, Octave, if you could just go back in time, 2016 or whenever you first started that relationship and you'd just gotten restored in your faith and restored to the church, what would you do differently knowing what you know now?
Wow, there's definitely I was looking forward to going on encouragement dates and just getting to know disciples, and really had a great spiritual revival going before I met her, and I would just continue on that direction, and get to know people, do life and build the friendships and build the relationships and do life with people, and then, I know that would've been healthy and a great way to live in San Diego.
How did you go through that really tough time? I mean, just kind of marrying just what appears to be just the wrong person, doing the wrong thing, and just blowing past the guardrails, so to speak. But in your
Yes.
relationship with God, you didn't reject that. You still are doing well. How'd you navigate that?
Well, it was tough. I got the news that she was disfellowshipped from the church. I guess they told me that they were doing that at a conference at a single they were doing it at the church. They were reading the letter at 2 of the locations in San Diego while I was at a singles conference in San Diego in a separate location. And that, in the same day at that singles conference, a sister come up and asked me for my phone number, and I was like, "Oh, that's weird," but I was like, "Okay." I gave her my number. I didn't know what else to do, but the way to just thankfully, God just I had been praying for, let's see, the few spiritual the spirit my like, my spiritual gifts that the last spiritual gifts test I did, my top 3 were faith, wisdom, and discernment, right? You think wisdom and discernment, well, it doesn't sound very wise what he was doing, but wow, thank God the faith never left me, and I had prayed for faith, wisdom, and discernment. Like, I'd prayed for a faith for it's like an ongoing continuous prayer. I don't generally do that, but I don't know why, but there for a few years back in the early teens, and I had prayed for faith, wisdom, and discernment. And faith, the kind of faith that if I got in a car wreck and was maimed or whatever, paralyzed, lost limbs, that I wouldn't lose my faith in God. So
Yeah,
he's
that's
honored that
awesome.
for sure. Yeah, amen.
Absolutely. I mean, do you hope to get married in the future? Are you looking forward to getting married, or is that just off the table
I
from
do.
now on?
No, I do. I look forward to it, and but I kinda know that there's and now that I'm in this place, right, I guess in the back of my mind, I wasn't secure in knowing that I could do what God has given me to do, which is to become financially free in real estate, and that's given me a confidence that now I know that the right person for me will see that gift that God's given me and the gift that he's given me to manage money and things in life that, that I could be the leader, obviously, be open to any advice and wisdom that my future spouse could bring and work together to do what God has put on our hearts to do with the freedom that he's given us and be able to be able to continue in a trajectory that really helps people and loves people and builds disciples.
It seems like on a personal level, there's been a lot of disappointments. There's been some failures, there's been some setbacks. On a professional level, seems like it's just been one success after another. So that must be kind of a little bit, because on a professional level, you're cranking, you're doing great. On a personal level, it's been painful. Sounds
Right.
like.
Right.
When you think about the disciples around you, Christians, what's the biggest mistake you see Christians making when it comes to the topic of money?
Well, I don't know that there are so much mistakes, just personal choices. We buy cars that are whatever, like my dad bought when he was 18, it cost his annual income. So I've never spent money on cars. My buddy, they helped me work on them and work on houses. He said cars are a losing battle. And so he was the extreme example where he had 4 cars ready to go because 3 at any point, 3 of them might be broke down, and I actually I had that as well. So, I had 4 vehicles and 3 were broke down, but at least my 4 were a little nicer than his 4, but I guess that's one of the biggest. I'd say that's the biggest, and I probably could literally, honestly say that I've spent less than $10,000 over the last 22 years, 24 years of having cars because I would buy one. I would buy it like I buy a house. I would buy it for less than it's worth. Thank the Lord, He would give me a deal, and then I would drive it for a while, and I would get hit by somebody, and then I would collect an insurance check. I enjoy traveling. I enjoy food. I'm a foodie. And so I do those things and I can still be frugal when I travel and eat a lot but I've had to work because frugality for me is just kind of like ingrained in my being, I believe. And it's a good thing because I want to honor God however I spend my money. Like everything I have, one piece of me that I don't really like tell everybody is everything I have is God's. You know, I used to get everything I could get for me, and that didn't work. It didn't give me what I want in life. So now everything I have is God's, and so I with that in mind, it's like and also just my nature, I would have to go to a car lot and shop, or I would have to get out the classified ads in the newspaper and go car shopping, or get online, and I don't like computers, I don't like sitting behind a computer, like,
Right.
I can sit behind my phone for hours, but I don't like going shopping, it's not me, I'm not that kinda guy, but
Well, the biggest mistake you see Christians making, and you just talked
Mhm.
about
Right.
overspending on cars, that's a big issue, and just not being frugal. Okay,
Mhm.
so let me just kind of pick it apart here a little bit. So how many houses do you currently own now?
I've got 16 houses, and one of them has a garage apartment. 17 doors.
18 doors. Oh my gosh. So by 2000, I mean, this all happened really in the last 10 years. You had 3 and then all of a sudden it went up to 17.
Right. So
So you
there's like a
it
hockey
started to
stick.
accelerate. Something happened, like, where you started picking them up faster. Now,
Right.
is that all in Oklahoma or some in San Diego?
No, all in Oklahoma and one in Kansas. And
Okay.
I was living in Kansas for 2.5 years, working at Fort Leavenworth Army Base. And
Okay, so
yeah, I
somewhere
love.
along the line, you got really, like, you just said, "Hey, I'm onto something here," and you just went after it. Okay, what was that moment? What was it that you go, "Hey, I've got 3 and I want a whole bunch more." What
Right.
happened? When did it click?
I love this story. That is God's story for sure. The real estate that I've purchased and most of the properties, I can see how God orchestrated it. And I had pent up demand, I call it. So we're in COVID, and it's 2020, getting the divorce, and after 2.5 years of court, and now we're on Zoom court, and there's an ice storm, and I go look at a house just a few days before this ice storm, few days before court, and my buddy, he was kinda over the whole real estate thing. He's, like, made his money, he doesn't wanna deal with it, he doesn't even wanna help me anymore. He's like, "I've taught you, you're good, and now let's just play." So, I was showing him houses, we're at Denny's, I'm like, "Look at these houses," and he's generally not interested, right? But he knows I am, so he's like, "Okay, let's check them out," and he's like, "No, no, 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 wait, what about this one?" And I'm like, "Wow, that's cool," he never says that. So we go drive over to this house in 2020, maybe, yeah, October. Yeah, I only had 3 houses, so the 4th house came on my birthday, November 20th, so we step out of the vehicle, there's a dumpster in the driveway, we get out, my buddy gets out of the vehicle, he goes and talks to somebody that's throwing stuff in the dumpster, and this person says, "Yeah, we're selling the house," and my mom's the owner, she's inside, and like, we're selling it for he said, we he said, we had an offer." She said, "We had an offer, and it's a wholesaler." So he said, "Well, how much did they offer?" She said, 35,000. Like, my buddy looked at me, he said, "You would you give her 40,000?" And I kept my poker face on. I said, "Well, let's go check it out." And, my game face, you can't on the inside, I'm like, "Yes." And, so it doesn't matter the condition, and it was in horrible condition, but it didn't matter. That one bought it for 40,000. I put 40,000. I hired a guy. One guy learned, that was my biggest remodel ever. It came down to the studs, all the drywall from, 4 feet and below was removed, and I could talk real
Wow.
estate all day. Let me figure out how to way to make these house stories short.
Okay. Thank
But
you.
but yes, yeah. So God's gave me basically, let's see, about, I don't know, $80,000 with that deal, and that deal I found, a few days before I had signed the contract, the day after my divorce was finalized. So that's the big God piece where it's like, Octave, you weren't wise and you weren't discerning in that, and you lost some time and some money, but boom, here's all of it back and so much more right there. And
That's a great
that's
way to view it.
right. And that just started the journey for buying within 18 months. I bought like 7 houses. I had pent up demand. I couldn't buy anything going through the divorce process, or I probably could have, but it was advised that I don't do too many financial things. And so I just saved money. And then after the divorce, I was able to refinance, cash out of some property, and buy more property. And just
Good,
so many
good.
deals came. Yeah. And there's one lady that sold me 5 houses now. I met her through a mutual friend who was a travel agent. We met on a European bus tour, 11 days, 7 countries, and our travel agent friend said, "Hey, y'all are in real estate. Why don't you connect?" And that was when I was living in Providence, Rhode Island. She said, "These are tied up in an estate, but we agreed on the price, 2018, and 2021, she sold them to me at those agreed prices.
Wow.
Three houses in the summer of 2021. One was 35,000, another was 57.5, and another was 85. And so they're all probably worth 100,000 more than what she sold them to me for. So yeah, after I fixed them up and whatnot, but it's definitely just a fast thing. It was quick, and I told this guy I was working with it in Kansas. He was really interested in he said it's like a hockey stick. You're going, and then boom, all of a sudden you got this upturn. And so I guess I went through enough that God's like, okay, you can handle more. To whom much is given, much will be required. And so that's weighty. It's a heavy one,
Okay, so
right?
so that leads to this next question. How do you maintain your spiritual passion without getting choked out by the deceitfulness of wealth? Jesus talks about that many people end up in the third soil. The worries of this life, the deceitfulness of wealth, the desires for other things come in and choke it, making it unfruitful. You seem to have somehow found that balance where you've been really aggressive on the financial side, but at the same time, I was talking to you a few weeks ago, and you're looking to go on a mission team or a mission field or trying to serve somewhere. What's been the key for you to not get choked out?
Well, I suppose that God's given me so many messages and the right examples to see what I don't want, and I don't want to be choked out. And I've heard enough messages to know that there's a line. People have their financial independence number, and they draw that line, and I drew that years ago, and I never like wrote it on a whiteboard, or I never was like the visual put these, and I really should. I like it. I should write all this stuff down. Maybe maybe I'll get to it someday, but at least in the back of my mind I've had this this idea that, hey, if I just remember at Tinker Air Force Base, I said, well, if I could just make $80,000 a year as a government employee, like I'm good. And then And then it's like and then the other one, if I just have 10 paid off houses, like, I'm set. And so don't redraw the line. Like, if you meet your goals, you can set more goals, and that's kind of where I am. I'm in a zone where I've met goals, and I'm like, "What do I do next?" And so that's how our conversations have kinda kicked off, and so I'm seeking that. What do I do next? Because there's always opportunities to do the same thing you've been doing, like buy more houses or whatever. And it's like, that's still that in itself, God has used that to get me here, but I don't see that that's where I'm going. And maybe I think about it like this as well. I say, if
Okay,
I,
hold on one
oh, go
second.
ahead.
We just had a little glitch there, and
Okay.
so you talked about don't redraw the line. If you could just kinda go back there just a second.
Sure. Yeah. I don't want to say, well, now, you look at the world, you look at what all there is, right? I want to stay in my lane. I've met goals that I never really knew. I guess in the back of my mind, I believed I can do that. And so I was working towards that, and God just made it happen. But I don't want to just redraw the line and say, well, now I need to have X millions more in real estate holdings. Those opportunities, they come. The messages I hear are thankfully the messages I've held on to are the messages of just don't redraw the line. Don't just chase the money. I did that. Chase the money. The things didn't get me what I wanted. Now I need to just hold on to God, and do something that with what he's given me to grow his kingdom. So I have a written in my notes on my phone. I've written in there things that I would like to do, and maybe be a preacher, maybe, definitely work for the Lord. And I have the freedom to do that if I buy an apartment complex like that I was just looking at recently. The elder that I started real estate with, he offered to sell me an apartment complex he built in the 90s. I reached out to some real estate professionals that own apartment complexes, and I mean, I could ask him all the questions as well, but still he's an interested party. So I need to go to a kind of a neutral party where as no matter how spiritual he is, he's a real estate guy.
That's right.
He's gonna
That's
he's
right.
gonna sell something, and he's gonna get as
Oh,
much
yeah.
as the person is willing to buy it for.
Right.
And,
That's right.
so I s what and this guy that I called, he said, "Well, I've got 22 unit apartment you could buy for 300,000 less than that if you want it. I'm selling it." He's like, I said, "Yeah, I watched your videos and you said you're living at the apartments." Like, "Yeah," I spend so much time at the apartments and they take so much work, way more than single family houses. And I said, "Okay, I'm not buying the apartments." Pretty quick
So
decision.
that's how you avoid getting choked out. That's really
Right.
smart. Okay. Let's just imagine, Octave, that you're like Job and God just took away everything. Everything in a couple days just gets blown away. Okay. You lose all your houses. You're starting over ground zero at the age of 42. How would you become financially independent in the next 5 or 10 years? How would you rebuild? Give me your game plan.
Focus on relationships, focus on your friendships. Of course, obviously, God puts the people in your life who can take you where he wants you to go when you can't see clearly exactly, just God. And that's one thing I kind of battle with sometimes. As I try to build the relationships, like where do I go? What am I gonna do? Because I'm not fully rooted in one place. Like, I have the business in Oklahoma, and I have my dad there, and my brother and nieces and nephews and stuff. So I go there, and I have a few reasons to be there, but there's no other. I don't really want to be there. I would find where I want to be, who I wanna be with, and just probably I could do real estate, but I could do many other things. So those things are what I'm digging into, find out what I wanna do with specifically for someone that wants to do real estate. You can do it with no money down. It is true, honestly, but
Well,
it
so
costs.
here's the question I've got for you because this is something that I talk over with my son, and sometimes, have you ever heard of Bigger Pockets?
Right.
Okay, so it's like a podcast about, real estate and stuff like
Mhm.
that. And the guys there that are, the big shots on there are talking about their houses they bought for like $30,000, just like you're talking about.
Right.
And my son James and I are laughing like, who who can buy a house for 30,000? Like where are you living? And on top of that, the low house price plus that period of time during the last decade when interest rates were so low, they're down in the 2% range. Now we're it's totally different situation. Do you think it's possible to do what you did in real estate in the current environment? Prices are up, interest rates are up. What would you do differently? What's the key in this current environment?
Well, the house I bought this year was my first owner financed property, and it was the same lady that sold me 4 houses before. So, you get creative, you find ways to do deals, buy houses that are you can always find a deal. You may not make as much today per month, so you're gonna have to keep your job and longer maybe, and it took me 20 years, right? So it might take the next person 20 years. And this if this market tends to if it stays the way it is and you can't put so much time into it and you got to really just have your first you can still buy a house in Oklahoma that's just torn to pieces for $50,000. And then you can put 30,000 in it and it'll be worth 110, 120,000. So then you can refinance it and pull out your 50,000 and then go to the next ones. You really just you might not make as much money per month, so you're keeping your job and you're doing it on the side and you're living frugal and you can still do it. You just have to find those deals in the networks. You get with wholesalers and you go to your real estate investment group meetings and you talk to people like me and other people that have done it. And it seems like it's an interesting crowd. I was happy to find that when I moved to San Diego and got into the real estate investment groups, I was hearing these big dogs in the business at the front of the room who they've done hundreds of millions of dollars in business, and they're talking about their relationship with God. It's like, "What? What's going on?" I never knew it, but it kinda does seem that God has real estate is so important in how the world works that I think God's got his finger on the pulse and he's not letting just there are snakes out there. There's wolves out there, but there's a lot of good people in real estate that can really help you and are ready to help you.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Have you bought any houses in San Diego? San Diego is one of the most expensive places in the country, if not the most expensive.
No, I haven't. And there's one next door to where I'm at now. I'm staying with my buddy, and it's been vacant for like 15, 20 years. The guy raised his family here. They've got money. They don't need to sell it. And it's good to hold. It's a good buy and hold investment here. You don't really have to rent it out. The appreciation rate here is so high that he can just hold on to the house, do nothing to it, and it's a good investment. So that makes it a difficult barrier. It's a barrier to entry for because it's so expensive. But I mean, I've talked to him a couple of times. He comes over there and I say, "Hey, I'm ready to buy it when you're ready to sell." And I'm sure he's got a line of people that are ready to buy it. And I'm the new kid on
Yeah,
the block. But
that's
maybe
right.
Lord willing, maybe he's not sold it yet because maybe it's because it's a house that will be good for me, a place for me to be, to plant roots in. That's possible, maybe a few years down the road, who knows, but we'll see, yeah,
That's great.
yeah.
So, Octave, what are your dreams moving forward? What are your plans? What would you like to do? You've got the money issue dealt with. Okay, you've got steady streams of income coming in from 16 or 17 properties. How many of those properties are paid off now?
That would be, I suppose there's enough of them paid off to where I don't have to work, That's I quit my job
Okay.
2.5 years ago, and,
That's awesome. So
for
you're really
sure.
living the dream. I mean,
Yeah.
financially independent, retire early. I mean, you're technically retired, but you're working for God. You talked a little about maybe becoming a preacher. We had talked and you were thinking about looking at different churches to help out. What would you
Mhm.
love to do in the next 10 years?
Well, that's that I think let's see, part of the puzzle I forgot to mention earlier was if about the how do I keep from redrawing the financial number is well, if I'm single, like why I've worked all this to get where I'm at and to enjoy. I've saved and scrimped. Now let me enjoy and spend. I kind of have a goal to spend all the money I get every month. Honestly, I think that is for me. That's and to give it, and it's for me, it's and I don't do it, but it's kinda it's like it's
It's
like
a goal.
it's a goal, it's so I gotta work on that, I need to
You know what? I think there's a lot of people that would love to help you with that.
Right.
I'm sure a lot of people listening go, I'd love to help him. That's
Seriously,
hilarious.
especially maybe a sister, if I get a wife,
Oh, yeah, there you go.
she
I'm
would
sure.
help. But I thought,
I
well,
know.
if she wants to expand our, if she wants to expand our financial number, maybe that's when I'll do it,
There you go. There you
So
go.
if she wants to buy if she wants to build another 17 add 17 more properties to the portfolio, then I'll do that with her, but I'm just not motivated to do it myself. It's a lot of work. And
That's really
so, yeah, spend the money, but I've thought, yeah, be a preacher, get out and go share about God, do more outreach and lead. I like how Lynn Green talked about it, Bible talks being so important to the growth of the church and the community. And when
right.
we have good Bible talks, we can grow. So maybe learn to be a good Bible talk leader, and
Yeah.
start there. And I've thought I really enjoyed going to the Philippines. I went with a brother who met a sister on DT Heart and Soul, and I was his literal wingman. He was afraid to fly, and so I went with him, flew over there. Was his wingman to meet his girlfriend, and they didn't end up staying together, but, I enjoyed my time over there. I'm like, I could go serve in the Philippines or I met a brother in Kansas, him and his wife, they were touring the Asian countries to find where they wanted to land because they have a certain amount of real estate that will allow them to not live extravagantly, but they could enjoy more time freedom in a cheaper place, and they could serve the church. And so Cambodia, Vietnam, so those places kind of pop up in my mind. But currently, my goals right now, I'm at my friend's house in Oceanside, San Diego. He's a gracious host, a great guy, spiritual mentor. Look up to him a lot. And his parents, they were my spiritual parents in Colorado Springs. And so I have a good community here. I wanna but, there's a piece there was like a what was the 3 that you recommended? It was like a 3 look for a growing church. Do you remember that? Do you mind saying that
I
again?
remember our conversation, yeah. A growing church and a place where you could find people your own age and date,
Right.
find people to date. Right. I think that was specific to you.
Mhm.
I can't remember the other one.
I think connect and grow and serve in the church,
Yeah,
and
right.
so that's what I'm looking for.
So, final question. What
Mm,
advice would you give to a person who wants to make this life count for God?
I suppose that's definitely the, seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and, uh, and love God and love people and connect, grow, spiritually connect with people, serve. Those things are kind of what's on top of my mind right now.
If someone wanted to talk to you, maybe get some advice about some of the things you've talked about, could they email you? How could they reach you?
Sure. Yeah, email octave.lindley@gmail.com, octave.lindly@gmail.com. Give me a call. Um,
Okay, I'll put that in the show. Okay, terrific. Octave, thanks so much for being a part of the program.
and my pleasure, Rob. Thank you. Thank you for what you're
All the
doing.
best going forward. It was a real blessing to meet you earlier this year, and I'm happy that you could come on the program. Just